Get the YouTube rocking and rolling here. I'll drop a link in as well for everybody. And then we'll go get the teams, the very, very important teams. All right. All right. Okay. So I am dropping the link. All right. Everyone got that. So in case, again, for those that aren't here or what have you, let me see. All right. Let me just go see if there's anybody on Teams that we can, uh, whatever, have our little happiness or whatever. All right. Okay, as a reminder, we are streaming class to Teams as well as Discord. I am more interactive on Discord. I'm going to get so for anybody on Teams that wants to join us on Discord, rock and roll. And if you'd rather not, that's okay. But we are to fulfill the university mandate that class has to be on Teams, classes on Teams. It's also being recorded through OBS and streamed to YouTube, where you can archive it and look anytime. All right. Hey Russ, you're solo. You're solo over there on Teams. I think is Russ. Is that coming through okay on Teams? Yes. No. Russ, can you hear me on Teams? All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was functional. And what I can do is maybe join the stream. It's okay if I get enough people over there, I can blend the picture. But in any case, okay. So I posted a link to the YouTube stream on Discord on the Discord server. All right, so let me do one other thing, which is the Happy Doc, the topics of coolness. So let me pop that up. I'll try to find on the OBS stream. I'll try to find a better matchup, but everybody should have access to this document. And then I know that it's not going to look right on my screen that's being shared. Oh, I know why as well. Hang on a second. Well, what happened there? Oh, wrong external display. There we go. That is going to work better. All right. So let me juggle my memes around and make a little room. So yeah, this was what we were going to talk about: how to do well in job interviews, how to get through and overcome imposter syndrome, what employers are looking for in a resume, remote work versus office, and then red flags to look out for when finding a CS job. And these are the rest of these. There should be. Um, oh, I know. Does everybody? I think I dropped a link for everybody to be able to edit that document. Is that true? Does everyone have that? Let me drop another. I'm going to drop another link just in case. All right, and then I'll drop it in the chat on Teams as well, so everybody's got that. So that's the link to the shared doc for topics, and then oh, and thank you, Hunter, for dropping the link for anybody that prefers to track everything on Teams. And then let me drop the YouTube link as well. Sorry, that's the shared doc. Oh, and then there's the YouTube. And then the last thing, let me drop on there. That should be there. Okay. All right. So I hope everybody's doing okay. Um, Let me see something. All right. So on these topics that we've got going on, all right. Which of these do you feel like we covered? I know we kind of bounced around. Um, did you think we did a good enough job of talking about interviewing? I know we talked about it a bit. Yo, hello. It, I don't know. It feels like we probably did. Um, let me just say one thing. I'm gonna elevate that guy up on the dock. Um, what employers are looking for on a resume, and obviously my perspective is going to be pretty biased. You know, you know what I mean. Just biased from my experience, my view. But I think the number one thing that they're looking for, I'm looking for really two things. The first thing is some kind of tech experience. And one of the kind of critical things that you can do is anything you can possibly do to get yourself out of the fast food, out of the warehouse, whatever. There's nothing wrong with working fast food, and there's nothing wrong with working in a warehouse. I've done them both. The point is, when you're trying to send a message to an employer, um, and you've got, and your most current job is still cut bop, that's the job you're doing right. If that's the job you're doing right now and you're a senior, it sort of just sends a bunch of negative messages potentially to an employer, including, uh, where's your initiative? How good are you? Now, whether that might not even be fair, but it still has this kind of message, that comes through. Um, and so the thing that I recommend is if you want to work in a warehouse, go work at the warehouse, at Adobe. If you're going to work in the warehouse in a high tech company. So at least the company sounds like the right thing. If you're doing, um, whatever you're doing that can strengthen and emphasize, um, words that are keywords that sound right to an employer in a tech company. If you're the cleanup crew, uh, at the Taco Hell, then emphasize quality control and responsibility and accountability. You got to understand what it is they're interested in, and then just say that. If you just say cleanup crew, there's almost always in every possible job, even crapo, startup jobs, starting jobs, like minimum wage kinds of jobs, there's almost always something to say. Even better if you can quantify things. Like if you can say that I, built a system that was deployed, worldwide. Now, maybe there's only 3 installations for your company around the world, but you built a little script that they now run, you know. Um, that's still something you did that got deployed, you know. Um, anything you can do to back up, that you improved the world somehow, that in the ideal world, it's like took over sales and grew sales by 75%. Not all jobs lend to that, but there's almost always something you can say. One of the other, and by the way, drop if you've got questions that you want to just drop in the chat stuff as well. Um, and I'll look at the chat on both Teams and Discord. But if you there's kind of I think it's a myth myself, but the myth is that you have to account for missing time. Like if there's a gap in your resume that they want to see a continuous gap. I think if that continuous gap is you were driving a bulldozer at the landfill, I don't think it helps you, and I'd rather just have a gap. And if someone really asks, so what was the gap here in your life? First of all, no one's going to ask that because it borders on illegal questions. Tell me about your life that you aren't telling me. Isn't the kind of thing that is going to tend to come up. Um, you know, so that's my take on that. I think that's a sort of a mythology that has grown up that really doesn't matter. And I'd rather, and if they're like, wow, there's nothing here. Yeah, I was just working on school stuff and or yeah, I took a break. Yeah, I took a break and I went to Europe for a half a year, toured the country just playing harmonica on the street or something. I mean, just I went and found myself, or I just I had some time away from my regular career, working other jobs and whatever. You don't need to emphasize it by giving it real estate. I want to just hit a couple of the comments dropping. Um, yeah, so Jack said we didn't talk much about resumes. James, James, by the way, are you related to a man of your same last name with the first name Craig? Just we can take that offline, but um, oh yeah, Foxhound. We talked about interviews that only look for puzzle solvers, that don't look at things like the ability of the applicant to work as a team member and deal with high stress. Um, Yeah, so Cassidy, what's a good way to get experience to put on a resume? Do personal projects count? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Even better if you can do things that are like open source projects where you're kind of you're contributing to a community. You have to be a bit of a team player. It shows, it shows initiative. It shows, you know, that kind of thing. But if you've done your own projects, it's a little bit like a portfolio. You could have a little section for personal projects. I did a Lego Mindstorm, blah blah blah. Donated it to a kindergarten. I don't know. Anything you can say. The bottom line though is that anything you can say. Um, like I had a student once who was working. What was he doing? It was like some company where he was like, I don't know, they did lasers or something, but he would have to like maintain some of the equipment, calibrate stuff. It wasn't CS, it didn't feel technical. And he was like, it's not technical. I'm like, lasers? Are you kidding me? Of course you can. You're calibrating highly sensitive technical equipment. What does that say to an employer? Attention to detail, accountability, responsibility, can follow instructions, you know, anything you can possibly do to stress the engineering component of that. Um, and then the other thing too, Cassie asked about good ways to get experience. I had a question just yesterday from a student, not in here. No, not in here, but it was, should he take a $2 pay cut to shift from working at an auto parts store to working an internship in software? And I was like, oh yeah. And I understand $2 an hour is non-trivial, but the dollar amounts, you understand that once you start to gain experience in the tech field, in software, like his was like, it was going to drop him from like um, $16 to $14 or 18 to 16 or something like that. And I'm like, you realize that once you've got any chops at all on the software side, you're jumping to 20 and then going up from there. Even as a student, your rate starts to be more like 20 plus, but you gotta kind of pay the piper a little bit, right? So spending a little bit of time at a lower rate to gain sweet spot experience so that your rate can go up, but also then your resume is just that much more pumped. The other thing is if you're going to do little side projects, if you did a website for your roommate, put that on your resume. Give your company a little name. you know, Dorm Room LLC, and doing web development, anything you did, web development, testing, security analysis, blah blah blah, because you built your roommate a web page. You know, that's real. That's actually real, and employers are gonna they're not gonna be like, you faker. They're gonna tend to legitimize that. Um, so James said, if you do work on personal projects, companies really like to see them on GitHub or screen capture. That's at a certain point in the interview process. If you do have a personal project and it's sitting on and it's sitting on GitHub, then when you put it in your resume, putting a link to GitHub to the project is great, or YouTube video or what have you, but not strictly required. But it's a good point, James. Let me just see. Let me just see. All right, and James, hit me up on DM, okay, James, um, for the question about whether you know somebody of your last name with the first name Craig. Um, Let me see. So yeah, agreed with James that a video, screen capture, something that just articulates your project. It's a matter of trying to make a portfolio basically. So Jack, since we're seniors, we should be applying for entry level jobs, right? Because internships don't usually want seniors. No, it's not strictly true. Sometimes people want interns just because they don't want to pay. And if you don't have enough experience to really justify a regular full-time uh, entry level job in the industry, I would say it's whatever the market will bear. If you've done internships, you have experience, you know your confidence level, then knock yourself out and go for it. Go for the best you can get. And if in fact, um, yeah, let's see. Um, Yeah, I do see companies hiring people as interns and then they graduate and then they're trying to string them along as an intern if they can't make a regular full-time offer yet, or what have you. Yeah, and Hunter just said I would think both, and yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And Thong said it depends on how much experience you have, and agree. I totally agree. um, Daniel, let me see, said they recommended that I had GitHub projects as the second round started. I spent a long time doing so. It was worth it. Don't forget, you can't have public repos of school projects. Correct, correct. That's just, you got that right, because otherwise somebody just goes, oh, there's the solution to that one project. You can't do that. um, Faulted path. If I take an entry, that's a great question. If I take an entry level job in something like web dev, and then can that help me get a job a few years later in something different, or would I be limited to web development jobs? No, the first part of that, the former. Um, any experience is experience that's going to open doors for you. If you get pigeonholed, it's only because you pigeonhole yourself. Um, Now, it's once you've done web dev, it's going to be easier for a company to legitimize you being web dev. I look at it this way, and I'm not faulting or denigrating web development in the least because I think it's a great career, and good developers in that space are very, very valuable. In fact, if any of you are really, really good in the web dev space and love that idea, would you please DM me because I may have some opportunity um, that I would like to talk to you about. But you got to be good and want to do web dev, for a stretch of time. But no, the answer to the question is you can bop in the software industry. You can bop around from thing to thing to thing. Just understand that whatever you've done, it's easier for narrow-minded hiring interviewers to basically be like, well, you've never done the one thing. Well, nobody ever did the one thing before they did it ever. The idea here is some of you have had my orders of ignorance speech in 305G or 3450 or 4450. Um, the punchline is nobody ever knows anything until the first time they do it. You know, nobody knows anything. Can you ever quote me on this? Would you please? Nobody has ever done anything until the first time they do it. And the question is not when I'm interviewing, I don't care whether you've done my thing before. I care, can you learn and do you want to do the next thing? If you've got those two things, I don't care. Then the other thing that is what you're not going to do just simply says technology person, we're good. So that does just say technology person. Cool. Um, so let me see. These are great questions and great comments. Daniel responding to Jack says, don't sell yourself short. I was only applying to internships because I didn't think I had enough experience. Nobody wanted me. My wife pushed me to apply to any and all job postings with related experience. I ended up getting a full-time position. Good for you, man. It might be the internship applications are super hot because that's all entry-level developers think they can get. So that's right on, Daniel. I appreciate this. I hope you do too, Jack. If anything, you get an interview and it helps develop your interviewing skills. Apply, apply, apply. Keep developing yourself. Yeah, keep developing yourself. No, Daniel's right on, man. Absolutely right on. Um, I think that's just perfect advice. I think it's fantastic. Um, let me see. Yeah, thanks, Braden. A 10-year-old with 22 years of experience. Ash is what every employer is looking for now. Jeez. Yeah, no, that's always the thing, right? They want somebody with 20 years experience in Angular, or something that hasn't been around that long. I don't know when Angular showed up, but um, Hunter, do you have experience seeing that companies don't even look at your resume and just run it through some engine or program? I don't have that experience, but I don't know what big Mondo fat companies do. You know what I mean? I don't know. I really don't know, Hunter. Um, yeah, Tyler had the same experience, but it wasn't Daniel's wife who pushed him. It was his own wife. Yeah, that's good, really, unless you're like super tight and you're like, Daniel's brother or something. Nice. Um, no, okay. So yeah, Cassidy, the guy who develops a language and then is told he doesn't have the experience in it, that a company was looking for. That is kind of a classic, you know. Um, is it true most salary increases will come through changing jobs? Duncan. Sadly, yes. That's my experience. The problem is that you get into markets where the salaries are popping, right? Like really moving. And it's really hard for a company. I don't know why this is. I don't think it should be, but it's really hard for a company um, to, I don't know, just give somebody a 40% raise. It just breaks HR's models. You know, we don't give 40% raises. Okay, well, that guy's going to leave and go across the street for 40% more, right? You know what I mean? Like, we want to keep Brit. What's the cost of replacing her? Very high. What are you going to do? You don't have a whole lot of choice, but there's still, and I think the larger the companies, the more they tend to be stuck in their policies, I guess. So, yeah, Aaron just said depends on the company, right? And I agree with that, Aaron. I think that's right on. Braden said I work in an Amazon fulfillment center right now, but I'm attempting to join the technical academy. Doesn't require a degree, but I doubt a degree will hurt. Yeah. No, by the way, if you're going to work at a fulfillment center, Amazon is viewed as a tech company. If you're going to work a warehouse job, at least somebody starts by going Amazon. I don't know. There's some name, IBM. I mean, HP. If you're going to work a warehouse job, do it at a tech company. Um, Aaron, ideally, you get into a company that has frequent performance reviews along with the opportunity to get raises. Yeah, Aaron, and here's the thing. Here's the thing about that, because I've gone through this before with companies. It's easier to, you'll have situations where you're hiring new kids out of school, like you young punks, and hiring the youngsters, and the youngsters are coming in making the same as the senior people because the salaries have not kept up. And understand that salary is the single biggest expense for any company. The human capital is a massive expense. And so it can just really bankrupt you real fast, right? But when that's the market, you're going to kind of like coast as long as you can, because otherwise maybe you're going to run out of cash. I mean, as a company, you're trying to balance this thing, also being fair to everybody, but you're also trying to compete. So it's a lot of moving parts. Um, Braden, you absolutely can. Braden said you can attempt to negotiate. No, no, no. I don't think you attempt to negotiate, Braden. I think it's called negotiating. If I start by saying I'd like to talk to you about my salary, and they say no, we're not going to talk to you about it, that's a negotiation in which they failed. Unless you suck, and then they're just hoping that you'll just quit. So that's another dynamic. But assuming that you're somebody worth keeping, that is a negotiation. Um, I'm being probably overly pedantic. Um, Let me see. Yeah, Aaron, and I agree that I think companies that do those things really, really well are few and far between. Riley, unless you select few that become leads, managers, directors, you just hop between companies. What's RSU? Riley, what's RSU stand for? Get RSUs, restricted stock units. Thank you. Um, from each, and then when they vest, leave again. Once you get another acronym job, you're probably set. You want to give me what FANG? Thank you. Riley, would you mind dropping the FANG? Um, oh, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix. Thank you. Thank you. I do know Foxhound what STEM stands for. I'm apparently not up with the vernacular. Um, Foxhound. It seems like employers are more concerned with GPAs than degrees. I don't know what that means, so um, you may have to articulate better. I see another comment down in the chat. STEM degrees are hard, so it gives. What gives is if I have two students and one of them has a 3.8 GPA and one of them has a 1.8 GPA, then it does say something. It doesn't say everything, but the reason that what gives is that trying to hire somebody, you're making a commitment to somebody and quite an expensive one. And it's also, by the way, one of the reasons that you can make better money hopping between companies. Um, because when you hop between companies, a new company can see that you have this other experience at the other company and what your market value is, and then pay you just a little more than that to get you to come. It's nice. Somebody coming out of school with no experience, you have no idea what the value is, right? So comparables are absolutely a thing, and I don't think it's unfair. I've been in that situation where I want to know, what are you currently making? Because what I want to pay is a dollar amount that's affordable for me and feels great to you. That's what I want to try to do, because money is a limited resource, right? So, and I think that Foxhound, I think that it's a false dichotomy to say that they're more concerned with GPAs than degrees. They are concerned with both. And but if you have your degree and your GPA is poor, it raises more questions. Also, by the way, speaking of resumes, if you got a smoking GPA, which for me means 3.5 and above, put it on your resume. If it's below that, leave it off. Once you have your undergrad degree and a little bit of experience, unless your GPA is crazy exceptional, leave it off. Um, Let me see. Oh, yeah. Daniel made the comment that UVU gives a certificate of completion with prior due to prereqs, and don't feel shy about putting that on your resume. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, let's see. Right, Braden. If you don't successfully negotiate UVAMUs, let me see what else. Bopping down, bopping down. Who cares about grades? Employers, there are employers do care about grades to a certain extent. Grades only make an impact on like your first job out of college. Okay, that's the point at which your grades sort of matter. Once you've got cool experience, nobody cares what your undergrad GPA was 10 years ago. Really, nobody. But that first job can be a make or break. But that's also why there's some experience somewhere you can get. Intern, roll your own, open source projects, you know, personal projects. You've got to get that experience on your resume to distance yourself from the criticality of your GPA. Again, if you got a smoking GPA, man, that just only helps you. So if you got it, flaunt it. If you got a great GPA, because what does that say? A good GPA says, oh, this person is probably smart and probably works hard and is probably disciplined. You know that the number one the number one thing about getting B's or better is just life management, it's personal life management, it's discipline, but what a bad GPA doesn't tell you is, crap, man, my husband was all whacked with cancer for 2 years while I was trying to support the family and go to school with a couple of kids, right? It doesn't tell a story about her and what she was doing, and she might be the most brilliant, graduate of the program, and is popping out with a 2.5, barely just lucky to get the degree. And the GPA doesn't tell that. So a bad GPA, you're not quite sure. A good GPA, though, typically it says, you're smart enough to handle it and you're disciplined enough, you know? So, but that's the problem. You're still looking for metrics. You're looking for some measurement that gives you some objective confidence. BB Goose said, I haven't had any of the companies I've interviewed with ask about my GPA. Might be the type of position you're going for. Interesting. All the ones I talk with are much more concerned with seeing that you fulfill their laundry list of skills and languages. By the way, yeah, and can I just say, hate the laundry list of skills and languages. It's bullcrap, in my opinion. Um, the question is, can you learn? Can you adapt? Can you absorb a new thing? Because all that laundry list, it's not even going to be the thing in 6 months. And if it is, it won't be in 12. And if it is, it won't be in 5 years for damn sure, you know? So, yeah, Daniel, yeah, past a couple years, they don't care. And then before that, it's a mixed bag. Yes, yes, that's right. Great comments, great comments. Love it. So, BB Goose, I was curious about, you just said most places have made it apparent that they don't even care if I graduate this year. Do you mean that they're willing to hire you and then have you? Is that what that's trying to say? That they're willing, when you say that they don't care if you graduate, is that in the context of giving you a job? By the way, Braden, can I tell a story? Braden just said I learned more in the classes where I didn't get A's. Let me give you one example. There was one semester when I was an undergrad at BYU. It was down the stretch. It was in my last year, one of my last 2 semesters, and I blew my 4 point. I was a good student, and I got 4.0s a number of times, during a given semester. But I blew my 4 point this semester. I had waited to take Biology 100. Some of you might have heard this story in another class. Let me just share it real quick. It reflects this idea of how the GPA can be a negative indicator. I was in Biology 100. I'd saved it to the end because you don't want to be cranking 4 CS classes your last semester. So I always kept, you know, easy general ed classes for later. Biology 100. Somewhere in the process, I remember we had to write a paper about the hypothalamus. I don't even remember much about it. I just know it's a little organ in your brain that causes brain chemicals to produce. And anyway, but I remember there was a conventional wisdom at the time in the late 80s that had to do with the way in which the hypothalamus produced chemicals and how it was sort of would impact things like mood and happiness. And I had kind of this idea, and they taught this sort of like one directional influence. And without getting into the details, essentially it was all about how um, when these chemicals were released, that it would cause you to feel a certain way. And I understood that, but I always thought that that there had to be a way to think about um, producing emotion in your brain independent of chemicals and in advance of the chemicals, and by doing so cause the chemicals to be released. In other words, more deliberate. And it was not the conventional wisdom or the science. Um, everybody knows one of my pet. Everybody that's had me 305G knows that one of my biggest, as a guy with a PhD in the science field, is the statement that the science is settled. It is always the most bullcrap thing anybody presuming to be a scientist can say. But in my humble opinion, anyway, I wrote a paper about my presumption about the opposite effect, and I got trashed on the paper. Got like a C on the paper. It was well written and everything, but the TA just wrote, "That's not how it works." Exclamation. Like I didn't say that. Well, I guess I kind of said, "Hey, what if?" Anyway, then and I got and because of that one paper, I got an A minus instead of an A in biology 100. Um, Now, did I do a good thing? I think I did a great thing, but it hurt my grades. So then later on that, like a year later, I'm living in San Jose and I'm just reading the Mercury News. And there's literally an article in the Mercury News about a paper published in New England Journal of Medicine or, Journal of the American Medical Association or whatever, one of those, prestigious medical journals. And it was all about how scientists had discovered this bidirectional, this bidirectional thing with the hypothalamus, which I had written a paper on and had gotten ripped for it as an undergrad, in biology 100, right? So what's the point? The point is to get your grades, sometimes you have to pay the man by just doing the thing. You know, Billy, don't be a hero. So yeah, so Foxhound, I hope I kind of addressed that. Your GPA suffered due to military service while going through school. And here's the thing, 3.0 is not a judgment of your character. They're not trying to judge your character. I mean, they are, but they understand nobody believes that the GPA is a reflection of anyone's character. I do think that it is a reflection, can be a reflection of capability and of work ethic. And as I pointed out, it can sometimes not be, you know, bottom line. But also, and then Tyler just said, if the company you're applying for is being a jerk about your GPA, do you really want to work for jerks? No, you don't. And here's the thing, Foxhound, what you do is you go ahead, if you're all that in a bag of chips, like you say you are, which I just believe you, I have nothing at stake to believe or disbelieve you. So I'll just believe you. I will just believe you. But how do you prove it then? Well, easy peasy. Go do some stuff when you get a chance, do the extra, do. I know you're like, I've been busting my butt with the military thing, Chuck. Come on, man. Okay, I get it. I get it. But I'm just saying, you're gonna be able, you show up at any company, the worst company in the world, and you're gonna rock their world. You're gonna rock their fromage. And then that's gonna make you on the hot path build the experience, and then that GPA is not going to matter. Okay, not going to matter. Let me see. I'm just scanning because I took a minute for my famous biology story. Um, Aaron said GPA is usually only a major factor if you don't have any prior experience. That's right, or inadequate prior experience. And I do think Jack said when you say GPA, should we put down core or cumulative? I would put down whichever one's higher. You know, if you got a 3.6 cumulative GPA and a 3.2 core, put 3.6. If it's the opposite, 3.2 overall and 3.6 core, you know, I'd put C. If I see somebody saying CS GPA is 3.6, I assume that they didn't say their overall because they sucked in their other classes, and then I'm not going to care so much about that. Yeah, Aaron said whatever makes you look better. Yeah. Right. And then 4x4 said, does the laundry list demonstrate that you can learn new things? And the answer is absolutely not. It says you can claim certain things, that you've learned certain things. Doesn't say anything. Daniel, nice. No interviews. Ask about GPA. Fine. Let me see. Wait, Jonathan, you really? Jonathan said literally within 5 minutes of someone mentioning the certificate of completion that I'd never heard of, I got an email saying that you were just awarded one. That is awesome. Okay, yeah, Foxhound. C's get degrees. Yeah, but what about jobs? Correct, right? Um, Let me see. Wait, Cassidy, I'm not sure I understand your comment. The Philosophy Factory just opened up in Park City. That's the degree with all the jobs. You got to explain that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Um, all right. Let me see. I'm reading what James had to say. Oh, they were trying to tell you not to finish your degree. Yeah, that's problematic to me. That to me is just somebody desperate to hire and trying to get you to make compromises to match their desperation. Um, you know what's interesting though? Like I have a son in med school, and they don't have letter grades in med school, right? So that's the old. What do you call a guy who goes through med school with C's? The answer is doctor. You know what's interesting too? My lowest, so I have 3 degrees, right? Undergrad, master's, and PhD. My lowest GPA was my PhD. Um, and the reason was I reached that point and there was literally no other moment ever in the rest of my life when my grades were going to matter. So my PhD GPA didn't matter. So I just, you know, I remember for the first time in my life in my PhD programming being in a horrific final and realizing that I could graduate. I mean, I would pass the class, you know, um, without passing this final, and I just did enough that I knew, and then I got up and walked out because it was just worth it to me. Um, Yeah, the Tyler said, recruiter said applicants with a B average and worked a part-time job over straight A's. Sometimes straight A's, no offense to any of the straight A's in here, sometimes straight A can reflect a bit of a um, straight A's are notorious, like I mean straight up 4.0, are sometimes notorious for lacking the ability to get along with others, okay, to play well with others. Um, Oh yeah, stick it to the man. School of Rock. Thank you, Hunter, for that. Okay, I'm gonna just we're about out of time. I'm gonna just quickly review these and wrap up, and then um, on the thing, what they're looking for a resume. Oh, secret word, secret word. Um, stick it to the man. Stick it to the man. Pay the man. What are the other expressions? Does that work? Oh, can I say one other thing? Who made that comment? Who reminded me? Is that working if we go with stick it to the man for the secret word? Um, okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. I don't mind, if those are there. I want to just say one thing. The only real points anybody is missing on the assignments, you realize I'm great with everybody getting A's just by participating, right? The only thing that's killing anybody is just not reading the bloody instructions. Like, it's not a paragraph, it's 5 bulleted sentences. And for the most part, it's been great. So, just keep up the good work there. But there's just a few, like maybe half a dozen or less, that are not reading the dumb instructions and losing points for it. Okay, let me see. Um, Daniel, great comment. Thank you for asking about the secret word. Thank you for reminding me on that. Let me see. Daniel just said some great comments here. Make your resume look professional, correct spelling. If I'm looking through a lot of resumes and I see a typo on the resume, I toss because, like, this is your one shot at making an impression. How are you going to do when it's time to find a software bug? Whoa, Daniel, changing the colors. That's freaking brilliant because you're in there, you're harmonizing. That's amazing. Um, Let me see. And Foxhound, correct. There was no class last week because that was a university holiday on Monday, so there was nothing due. All right, that's it. We're out of time. When we come back, I think we've talked a lot about the red lights. If you have other ideas, drop them in here, and I'll try to pick from the list. For what's going to kind of come next. But I'll talk a little bit about remote versus office. I'll talk to you about a book called Peopleware, which deals with office space, and we'll talk about the imposter syndrome. I hope this is enjoyable. At least if it's at least an hour enjoyably spent with some value, that to me that's a good thing. Adios, all my amazing amigos.